I thought I'd start off by doing a little show and tell about the history of where we come from, and not many of people have seen some of these things. There's not those embarrassing photos, Rachel, that's another time. But just in terms of our journey and where we've sort of come from, that just seems freaky when you look at it like that, from 1999. And so here's where we started. That's the Grace Hotel and our original logo. And we were so proud of that logo. We spent months, cost us a fortune. And of course we started with two cardiologists at Sydney Heart Image, part of the Sydney Adventist Hospital, and their quest to help deal with executive stress in the Australian workplaces. And that's where Rachel was introduced to the two doctors, and pretty much the next day resigned from her job and said, I want to join these guys because what they're doing in workplace mental health sounds amazing and I'd like to be a part of it. And that's how we started. And then a couple of years later we outgrew that and we went down to Martin Place, just to the BNP Centre in Castlereagh Street. And we were there in the serviced office with Servcorp for a year or so, and then we took on another office. And then we moved down to King Street Wharf. And that's when we had a rebrand, and it was a very special time, 8 years we had down at the wharf. We wondered about that for a while because it was, it was so far from the city, and but then everyone said it was only about 7 minutes in heels. I don't wear heels that often, and that was a really great time. And then Resilia was born, and Kristen, who's here today, came on board and said we need more space quickly. And I want to acknowledge Kristen now formally for the work that she's done in terms of starting Resilia pretty much and building it into what it's become today. I'll talk more about that later. So we were there until 2012 when Resilia was started. We moved to Pitt Street, back to the city. And within pretty much a block or two from most of you all here today in terms of our clients, or many of you. And that was a real change for us in terms of the two brands, the holistic approach to workplace mental health across intervention, prevention, assessment, and return to work for individuals as well. And then that leads us to now. And we're about to move again in a couple of weeks, just next door to 20 Hunter Street, just across the road from where we are now, into the 20 Hunter, into the SWAB building. And a new logo, of course. Well, the logo's been around for a while, but the launch of the Resilience Box, which we'll talk about later. And here's a little something to sort of highlight and capture this journey. We had a burning passion and a very clear vision of what we wanted to do. We were seeing this growing trend of stressed out, burned out people struggling with their well-being, problems with relationships at work and at home, and we believed we could do something about it. So we never had a plan for world domination or anything like that, but we knew our effort would make a difference, and we set out on our clear mission, which was quite simply to help individuals reach a deeper understanding of how they can improve their well-being, accomplish more and have more satisfying relationships at work and everywhere else.
Mental health awareness has changed dramatically since 1999. Back in the day when we started the business, we did not even use terms such as mental health or psychological well-being. We were certainly using terms such as stress claims and psychological injury, and that's really where everyone's mindsets were. We would find ourselves working continually at the reactive end, so we would be jumping in, helping organisations when a problem had emerged, when someone had put in a stress claim or someone was not travelling so well. But really our organisations were not of the mindset to look at prevention of mental health issues. And it wasn't until 2011, when the work health and safety legislation came out, that provided a legal impetus for everybody to get better at proactively looking at mental health risks, being able to look at a variety of means to manage and control those. And literally overnight the space changed, and prevention strategies were something that was really explored by our client organisations.
The work that we were doing through the Centre for Corporate Health and the consulting we were providing employers over the last 15 years identified for us that there was a gap in the market. There was nobody out there who was providing a tailored psychological rehab service that could help employers navigate the world of psychological rehab when things started to go wrong or when a claim was lodged. We were able to identify that most of the service offerings at the time were structured around recovery from a physical injury. So Resilia was really about focusing on how do we implement best practice recovery strategies for psychological injury, what does that look like, and how can we then support an employer through that process.
We have assisted so many client organisations through quite challenging situations, but there is one example that's still quite close to my heart, where we assisted a law firm client of ours with, sadly, the suicide of a young lawyer in their firm. And we were there to support them in the aftermath of that event and remain there for 6 weeks, assisting and supporting in so many different ways. And what really struck me and really contributed to my sense of purpose was seeing and witnessing the ripple effect of suicide and how it impacts people in so many different ways. But I do like to think that good things can come out of tragic circumstances, and I have to say that was the moment where law firms really put mental health on the corporate radar. And from that moment on, law firms all over Australia were really leading the way and taking charge of mental health in the workplace.
The biggest challenge that I think I've ever faced in my career was a critical incident at work. It was a suicide at work. It happened in 2010. And the very first person I called was Rachel Clements. And Rachel and the team for Centre for Corporate Health supported myself, my team, and every person in that firm deal with what was an absolute tragedy.
I think there is such a reduced stigma these days in terms of mental health presentations at work that people are looking to support rather than to manage out of the organisation. So I think there's been such a shift in terms of awareness and providing support for someone to recover, which has therefore reduced the stigma of mental health in the workplace.
I think the biggest breakthrough that I've noticed was following the training we provided for all of our partners and leaders across the organisation around managing mental health in their teams. The reaction was really striking, how positively they received the training and how important they felt it was, and felt empowered to actually do something with it. I found that really refreshing and positive.
I
think Centre for Corporate Health has been incredibly successful at establishing niche services across a range of specific client industry groups. And I think they have been so successful in doing that because they have a unique readiness to meet the client where the client is. Centre for Corporate Health does not come to clients with a off-the-shelf solution. Instead, I think we're very ready to understand the specific issues that a client's facing and work to address those for the client where the client is.
We see the Centre for Corporate Health as an extension of the CBA family. Each of the consultants have a unique set of skills and experience that we really value at the size of our organisation. And any challenge that we've put forward to them has been very gracefully accepted, and they've come to the party to deliver.
I think it's because it's a really agile and fluid company. So whatever the client's needs are, we're there to almost anticipate those in the space of psychological safety and mental health, and build services that address those issues that they're experiencing. So I think we've moved with what the industry has needed, and I think that's just made it a company that's not stood still or got stuck in the past, and that's why it's seen so much growth. We've managed to maintain our boutique feel and our real client focus, but grown it to a national and international level now.
I think it's really hard to pinpoint one challenge, because when you're dealing with people at their most vulnerable, there are multiple challenges. We've had critical incident challenges that have impacted other staff members. We've had some really complex return to work issues that they've been able to help with in that space. I think there has been so many complex issues that they've been able to help with. I find it difficult to name one. All I know is that they're probably the most effective providers in the space that I've worked with to date.
I see Resilia continuing to be at the cutting edge of innovation, research into mental health prevention and recovery from psychological injury. I also see us utilising some of our new technological advances to make sure that we have a service offering to reach our regional customers, and make sure that everybody's having the access to the interventions and services that we can provide.
I think vicarious trauma is the next big psychosocial stressor. So roles which, by their very nature of the work that's being done, are traumatic, and people being exposed to either what they read, what they're hearing, who they're working with. That notion of vicarious trauma is really a big area where further support can be offered in terms of awareness, as well as intervention approaches.
Well, the results show that mental health is not going away. In fact, it is getting worse. So I think that we will be delivering still similar mental health messages, similar mental health interventions, but I do think, and we're already seeing this, that we're getting a lot more sophisticated about the types of interventions that we do and the type of risk profiles that organisations are really looking at, and also being able to use technology in a way to reach wider and larger populations. So that's definitely one aspect. But our business has always been really organic. We've grown so organically over the 20 years because we've been very good at innovating, we've been very good at keeping our fingers on the pulse of the market and reacting and responding to what the market needs. So I do think that that degree of agility will continue as well.
The first thing is finishing what we started. We always dreamed of having an organisation that tackled the root causes of workplace mental health, and I believe that we do that. The next thing was about taking our content and our solutions to a wider audience and more breadth, and the Resilience Box platform is definitely going to do that. And I think finally it's about the next frontier with regards to stress, and that is dealing with emotional health, helping people understand their emotions, how to deal with emotions, and how to deal with little problems in effective ways. Because if that's not dealt with, that's what then manifests into mental health issues. So I think that's the big thing moving forward. So what is this world exclusive, I hear you ask? Well, the brand and the name, the Resilience Box, I know a lot of you have heard for a long time now, and actually it was 7 years ago when we started just after Resilia. We started offering education in a very individual way to help people return to function, to speed up recovery and prevent relapse in the rehab space. By basically teaching them all the things that they should have learned in high school about dealing with stress and life and problem solving and time management and ways to deal with stress and cope and all those things. And then we started then offering that sort of education more in group programs and training over the years, hence our resilience programs that are happening all around the country. As we speak, we're engaged with a major bank in their business banking division, running over 150 workshops around the country to support their bankers deal with not only the aftermath of the Royal Commission and all the changes, but also help to have them to cope with their customers in terms of all their stress and the pressures that are going on. Following on the work we did with their regional agribusiness bank around the country as well in drought-affected areas. So that education around resilience and coping with change and dealing with stress, as Rachel said, is not going away. There's becoming more and more need for that. So we then realised, how can we get this deliver this in a more efficient way? So we talked about the Resilience Box, and here's a little video to tell you what it is.
If you've ever tried your hand at a bit of DIY, you will know that it is important to choose the right tool for the right job. And it's the same in life. Our journeys are full of ups and downs, from when you feel like a black cloud is constantly following you, to when the sun couldn't shine brighter. Navigating these times requires a personal toolbox filled with the right tools to grow your well-being. We call it the Resilience Box. This dynamic platform offers bite-sized online learning modules to get you operating at peak performance. From guided mindfulness episodes to spring clean your perception on life, to podcasts, videos and fact sheets that take a deep dive into well-being topics. Concerned about your teenager's mental health? Watch a video to learn strategies for talking with them about it. Always feeling tired? Complete some exercises for a better sleep routine. Struggling with anxiety? Our anxiety program will help get you back on track. Need to speak with a professional? Request an appointment to chat with one of our psychologists. However you're feeling, the Resilience Box is designed to strengthen your resilience and build positive mental health. So, what are you waiting for? Open the box today.
So what's in the box? Well, this was all geared around our approach to workplace wellbeing and mental health around the continuum from somebody being well, then becoming unwell, to when they are then unwell, and how do we help them recover. We know that most of the dollars and investment is spent at the back end around that recovery phase. With a little bit more investment up front, we can help actually prevent that from happening. The Resilience Box was designed to provide that learning and education that we have in a digital online version, both through a desktop version and also via our mobile smartphone devices as well. And so what's in it? And I guess the way that people are consuming content now really sort of drove, and we've learnt this from our current My Support portal that we offer for our EAP clients. We've had a range of information on that portal now for years in terms of employee support and manager support, and we've gone to clients and asked what else. The big thing that we realised was online learning and people taking the learning into their own hands in terms of that DIY approach. So there's lots of little 15-minute segments and many more that being added each week with regards to the whole range of topics. We have our videos, and that's been a lot of fun making those with our staff. They like the hair and makeup. Doing the videos on, once again, a whole range of different topics that can cause stress in our lives. There's the podcasts and the fact sheets in terms of all these topics as well. So no matter what way you want to consume content, you want to read it, you want to listen, or you want to do something in terms of learning, you can do that through the portal. And finally, an advanced scheduling and booking system for our EAP clients to start off with, and that's the target audience that we're focusing on first. But the next area is rehab, our rehab clients, working within the compensation schemes all around the country, providing that extra bit of support and assistance to someone in terms of their recovery. And that's the resilience box. So what's in it? Just very, very briefly, the 6 core areas or categories of wellbeing that we've identified and been working with for years. In terms of My Life, looking at the essence around control and self-efficacy. The My Plan section around self-directed change. It's always fascinating why we don't usually do things that we know that are good for us. And this module was really designed to get into the psychology behind self-directed change. Then we have the My Body section, which is all around nutrition, exercise and activity, as well as rest and relaxation. The My Mind section is really the heart of it, I guess, with regards to all those cognitive behavioural elements with regards to stress, the unhelpful thinking styles, which leads then to My Emotions, which I briefly alluded to in the video about how to deal with those little things that causes such angst and grief or sadness or frustration or stress, anger, whatever it might be, in more productive ways. And then finally, I guess the biggest cause of workplace stress that we've seen in our 20 years is to do with workplace relationships. And this is only getting worse, I'm afraid. This increase in hypersensitivity, the over-emotionality that people have with regards to little things being taken out of context, blowing up, let's lodge a grievance here, whatever. It's really interesting and a worry for our future generation of children entering the workforce around this hypersensitivity issue. So that's a whole other conversation I can have with a lot more red wine. So that's what's in the box. We're very, very proud of it, and it's ongoing. And to tell you a bit about firsthand who's using the box already, I'd like to once again welcome back Megan Lewis, who's the she's not the National Manager of Psychological Services, sorry. She's the Wellbeing and Safety Manager for News Corp. So let's hear from Megan.
Hi everyone, it's nice to be here today. I've flown in from Victoria. We've had some rain. It's really bad for you guys at the moment. It's all figured out. So Tony and Rachel have asked me here today to not just help them celebrate the 20th year of operation of the Centre for Corporate Health, but also to share News Corp's experience so far in the use of the resilience box. I can't start that piece of the journey though without first explaining where we've come from as a business, so bear with me for a few minutes. A couple of years ago, I was asked by my then manager, Christian Frost, to come back from parental leave and fix the News Corp health program. Seemed like a reasonable request, so I obliged. Fast forward 2 years, and News Corp is now operating with a fully functioning risk-based mental health intervention framework that is embedded and actively used throughout the business. That success is 100% down to the Centre for Corporate Health understanding our business, taking the time to get to know our key stakeholders, and always delivering exceptional service. I personally would not have made it through the past 2 years without the support of Deb and Rachel and the team, Katie, in kind of building that structure from the ground up. But we know the Centre for Corporate Health are not the type of business to sit idle and are always looking for ways to innovate and assist their clients on their mental health support journey. Incoming, the Resilience Box. I will admit I had the idea of a proactive wellbeing program that had the ability to scale really quickly and be available to as many people as possible in an app, circling around in my mind for a little while, but floating that idea at the time would have been too much too quickly in terms of News Corp's journey, as we were still embedding those really important management practices. We definitely needed to walk carefully before we ran at a sprint. We methodically planned out mental health programs over the course of 2 years, using the data that we've driven from our work with the Centre for Corporate Health to drive our initiatives and target areas of the business that needed the most upskilling first, followed by consistent and relevant mental health campaigns. News Corp is a really varied industry businesses, and no one campaign suits the needs of all the areas. The team at Centre for Corporate Health worked alongside mostly me and Christian to ensure that we got the messaging right for all concerned and always sought feedback on where we could improve. Nothing like a bit of constructive feedback from journalists and people in manufacturing to keep you on your toes. Early this year, though, I was reviewing what we had set out to achieve and where we'd actually landed. And we'd done really well and delivered on all the elements of the mental health improvement plan that we said we would. I decided it was time to broach the proactive wellbeing program with the Centre for Corporate Health team, and lo and behold, the team were already working on a solution in that space. I took liberty and jumped at the opportunity for News Corp to be the company that trialled the Resilience Box platform. Rachel and Tony then met with the Director of HR of News Corp and the now Director of Health, Safety and Security, explained the concept, and not long after that, News Corp was signed up as the official Resilience Box guinea pigs. First step though, I asked my team to test the platform, and in my words, I asked them to break it. If we didn't try and break it and help the Centre for Corporate Health iron out any of the technical bugs, then believe me, News Corp people using the platform certainly would. Journalists are known for their investigative skills, and people working in manufacturing like to pull things apart and put them back together. We tested the platform as a team for 2 weeks and provided direct feedback to the Centre for Corporate Health along the way. The feedback from my team was fantastic, with an all-round theme of about time, this is what we need. Next up, we needed to throw it out to the News Corp market. The South Australian business was approached, and with an astounding, yep, bring it on, from the managing director, we set up preparing a campaign to launch a Resilience Box in Adelaide just a couple of weeks ago. In the first 3 hours of the comms going out, and this is just in the corporate space, 55 people have registered. We were over the moon with such early take-up, and the numbers continue to grow. We're currently at the next stage of promotion, whereby we are breaking the Resilience Box elements into their own individual campaigns to keep that front and centre in the business. Now, in the third week of the pilot, with roughly 5 weeks to go, the feedback so far has been very positive, with the most common theme being that people love that they have a quick and easy way to check in how they're feeling and get immediate access to podcasts, videos, fact sheets and information that's relevant to their situation. They also like the ease at which they can discreetly book in an appointment to check in with a psychologist if they'd like to. The fact they don't have to search for content is a real winner. And on that alone, we all know that Rachel's brilliant at what she does, but I truly believe she's missed her calling in terms of doing voiceovers and TV content worldwide. So you all saw the app version of Resilience Box is currently in the making. And we can't wait for that in the media space. It's very agile and everyone's always on the go, so that will be fantastic. But of course, people are accessing via the web browser on their smart technology anyway. I can't speak more highly of Tony, Steph and Nicola and the team for helping me to introduce the platform to the business, and more broadly how the executive conversations have gone in terms of return on investment. Nothing was too hard for the team to look into or problem solve. We had things going on overseas that we had to deal with and some tech stuff. And that to me speaks volumes on how committed the team are to ensuring their clients have the best and most appropriate resources available to them when and how they want them. So if you're contemplating jumping on board the Resilience Box journey, I can't speak more highly of the experience News Corp has had to date and continues to have. I'm not sure we ever won't have the need for the acute end of the wellbeing spectrum support. There will always be a need for the person-to-person intervention and assistance, but giving people the option to check in when they feel perhaps a little off kilter and swinging into the support that works for them goes a long way to creating that psychologically safe space we're all aspiring for. So I think you should just jump in and open your Resilience Box today. Thank you.
We thought for this event we'd have an engaging and provoking discussion, a bit of a think tank discussion around what's the future look like with regards to workplace mental health and wellbeing and all these things that we've been working with for 20 years. And so we thought what a great way to have a panel. To head and lead and MC, chair, coordinate the panel is Catherine Newton, the CEO of Are You OK? If many of you have seen Catherine before, know of Catherine, she's spoken at our functions before. And Are You OK? I don't think in this room is new to anybody in terms of the campaign for suicide awareness and prevention. In its 11th year, we've been associated with Are You OK now for 10 years, just after it started. And it's just been a wonderful partnership with us in terms of not only the work we do at the front end, the pointy end, I guess, in terms of prevention and intervention, but also then supporting organisations like Catherine's and others with regards to the work in the broader space. Catherine has spent over 8 years, first of all, trained as a volunteer Lifeline counsellor prior to transitioning professionally into this sector. She leads a very small but very dynamic and robust team. What your team does with the resources you have and the people is just amazing. The level of brand awareness of Are You OK has just gone up and up and up and up and up over the last a few years. And I think there's not too many people in this country that have not heard or know what Are You OK stands for. So I'm going to introduce Catherine, and then she's going to introduce our panel. Thank you once again, Catherine.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I guess I don't need to talk to that, do I? I've got my wonderful mic. Thank you for that introduction, Tony, as always. And you're right, Are You OK is now 10 years on, and it is thanks to a wonderful team that we have. There are, for those of you that don't know, there are 10 of us at Are You OK, Ruth Markham here being one, who I'm delighted could join me today. We do a lot of fun things together. And we've just had our evaluation results in, so if anyone is interested, we do now have 87% national awareness from 80% last year. So again, an incredible jump. We always think it can't get much bigger. But more importantly, we've just had the results in that 70% of people have asked someone if they're okay in the last month. We have other measures in terms of people are becoming more willing, more able, we understand more about the behaviour of when they're having the conversation, where they're having the conversation. 25% of those conversations are happening in the workplace. And it's very much a journey and it's a movement and we keep going forwards. And what I've started to explain is that, Are You OK team, we're here and we're bringing people along on this journey. And I was just chatting earlier about the themes and how we come up with our themes every year. And of course, people now know the question. You may remember 2 years ago we had Every Day is Are You OK Day, and that was a reflection of people that have spoken to us and spoken out to say, it's not only just one day Are You OK Day, it's every day. And I'm really glad to see that that's what workplaces are embracing. And it's thanks to partnerships and friendships with Rachel and Tony and Deborah and Nicola, who are incredibly supportive. And I feel very much that this is a room of friends. I think that there's a great relationship between everybody and there's a lot of goodwill here and there's a lot of positivity, and I think that it's testament to all of you in this room that do take this seriously, that do take this genuinely. I think genuine is the word here. So thank you for your genuine partnership and leadership of Are You OK? It really couldn't have got where it is without you. So thank you. I have also noted down the words sophisticated and agile, which came up from the videos and also during some chats that I've had here in the room, and I think that's absolutely what a Centre for Corporate Health represents. And Rachel, you are always the most sophisticated dressed in the room, and Tony, should we say that you're the most agile? I'm not sure, but let's maybe go with those themes and see how they work into the discussion. I'd love a lady who needs no introduction. I'd like to welcome Rachel to the stage. Now, we're going to be talking about how we've come a long way in the last 20 years when it comes to workplace wellbeing. We've definitely seen the shifts in workplaces striving to achieve psychological safe cultures. But how far have we really come? Where are we now? What are workplaces focusing on now? And where will this focus shift to the future? To also help us answer these questions, along with Rachel, I'd like to welcome Justin Martin to join us here. So Justin is the General Manager of Health, Safety and Wellbeing from Commonwealth Bank of Australia. In his role, he oversees wellbeing of the group's people in over 1,300 locations in Australia. No mean feat. And it's global operations. Justin is passionate about helping the bank's people and customers to support their mental health and wellbeing. Welcome, Justin. It's the first time we've met today. I'd also like to introduce Alexia Houston From Clayton Utz, Alexia began her career as a risk and insurance lawyer. She acted for local and international insurers, defending claims made against professionals, as well as representing Commonwealth departments on complex workers' compensation matters. In her current role as Head of Insurance and Risk for Clayton Utz, Alexia is responsible for managing enterprise-wide risk, as well as the firm's insurance program. A key aspect of Alexia's role is leading the firm's approach to the health, well-being and safety of the firm's people, including the firm's early intervention approach, and perhaps we can explore a bit more of that. Could you all join me in welcoming the panel? Rachel, I've just realised that I didn't introduce your bio. Are we all okay that we know who Rachel is? Thank you for that. I thought we'd begin as a question to all three of you, that I think we're all interested in the room to know what shifts that you've all seen over the last 20 years of how organisations are prioritising employee well-being. Do you think HR has become more proactive instead of reactive? I know that we did hear some comments on the video, but perhaps would someone like to kick us off?
Yeah, certainly I can start with that one. I mean, 20 years ago, our entry point into our client organisations was very much from that reactive end, so it was always where there had been, and at that stage it was pretty much even when it's got to now a stress claim. That was definitely what we were speaking about. It wasn't even we've got someone that's not travelling so well, it was we've got someone who's now put in a claim. So we were always being drawn into very complex, and there were complex issues when it gets to a compensation claim, and litigated issues as well, grievances, all of those things. So our entry point was often at very much the pointy end, very much at I always call it the back end. And then I do think the turning point was the legislation shift that did happen in 2011, where there was then that legal motivation and impetus to get very much better at the prevention and also then that early intervention. So it did shift. We were always very passionate about being proactive, preventative, because we'd always get these stress claims go, this could have been prevented so easily a year ago. But people just didn't have that mindset. We weren't really thinking like that. We were thinking like that, but no one was, really interested in talking about prevention until that legislation really came out. And now that is very much, we see the entry point now. Organisations are willing to spend, to invest in their people before something happens. Wonderful. And that's really now probably the biggest shift that I've seen. So now we get to work at the front end, at the back end, and along the journey in between as well.
And Justin?
It's been massive. It's a quantum leap really for me. I started my career just over 20 years ago, and there was no such thing as EAP. There was really no support for employees who were struggling with mental health and health concerns. I remember when I first graduated, people that I'd worked with for a period of time just disappearing, ill health, retired, and now you look back and go, well, that was a situation of excessive stress that we didn't manage, we didn't support, we didn't help that person on their journey. I think the last 5 years, I've been in Australia for about 7.5 years, the last 5 years I've seen that pace of change and that increasing care from employees. It's coming, and it's going to keep coming harder and harder. The change is there, definitely. The will to do the right thing by people is everything.
And that's perhaps something we can draw out a bit later, that were the people wanting to do something.
Firstly, I have to say this question's making me feel a little bit old.
I know, isn't it? We're all with you there.
But I do think there's been a couple of really significant changes. To me, the conversation around mental health and wellbeing is no longer just a HR discussion. It's a business discussion. It's not a discussion I just have with my HR team. It's a discussion that I have with my CEO. And that's a fairly regular discussion. It's daily, weekly. And they're willing to have that discussion and have it part of everyday discussion at a board meeting. I mean, Rachel came and spoke at our AGM one year. That was the importance that Clayton Utz placed on this discussion. It's definitely more proactive than reactive. Moving from, as Justin said, people just disappeared, to a situation where we now try to support people so they stay at work, or so that they always come back to work. And we're really proud of the fact that people always come back to work, or that they're able to stay at work. And I think also there's a really big change is what we're willing to talk about. So a few years ago we did the Are You OK at Law campaign, and at the time, working with Are You OK on that, none of the law firms were willing to mention the word suicide. And now that's a discussion that we're willing to have in the firm when it needs to happen. It's still obviously a difficult discussion, but the quantum leap from not even willing to talk about it to having education aimed at suicide prevention, I think is a huge change.
And I think, I think that, I'm not sure what the three of you, if you would agree, but that's where the conversation does need to go. But of course, you have to take a careful approach to having that conversation, which is why, for example, Are You OK doesn't give a guide to this is how you ask someone if they're suicidal and this is what you do, because right now for us as prevention, we are helping people to stop those small things becoming big things. Again, we're at that prevention end, but that is indeed, I think, where it will go. Alexia, you mentioned there about giving people options, that you want people to stay at work, you want people to return to work. I'm wondering, those options, is that part of what we might call a holistic approach?
Absolutely. So it forms part of our mental health framework at the firm. We've got 210 trained mental health champions or mental health first aiders that are there recognising the signs and symptoms. We've trained a lot of our leaders as well. And the old approach was someone's unwell, well, we'll see what happens and let them take some time off and maybe give them the EAP card. Not particularly helpful. Whereas the approach we take now is much more tailored. What is it that the individual may be experiencing, and how can we support that specific individual, whether that's through the involvement of Resilia, whether it's through coaching, whether it might require some time off and a recover at work plan. But there's no one size fits all, and it's very holistic. And as we've moved from that the person's already gone off and we're not really sure what's happened, to we've been able to either prevent it and they've stayed in the office. For those of you who need a business rationale to do this, we've reduced our average cost of claim by 80%. So it is if you want the business rationale, that's it there. But then I think it's now about, we're also moving it to more than that, and it's about how do we change the way we're working to prevent this happening in the first place. And so it's where we've all started in the reactive, and I think we're all moving our way towards prevention.
And Justin, on that, I guess that prevention note, I mean, CBA, huge reach, and we know that we are all individuals. You know, we all experience life's challenges, we all go through life's ups and downs, and so perhaps more in that crisis end there can be a bit more of a process and a procedure, but how do you reach the masses that you have at CBA with these early intervention and prevention efforts?
It's a great challenge. It's an amazing challenge for us. We've got 1,000 branches out there all over the country. We are seeing unprecedented levels of customer aggression against employees. What the team have done brilliantly about 4 or 5 years ago, they developed a digital platform, and that's called Thrive. Thrive houses over 1,100 pieces of custom content around any particular health and wellbeing aspect you can think of. So a real thank you for Centre for Corporate Health in supporting us edit those materials. Absolutely first class. As somebody new to the bank, I've been blown away by the power of those articles, how embedded they are in the organisation. People actually ask us for information, and the commitment from the businesses will get you an article within 10 days from an expert like Rachel or Penny. And those articles are available, and it's now becoming driven by our people asking us for support. How do we understand about my teenager going through a change, or a brilliant session that Penny ran for us from Centre for Corporate Health on preparing for death and saying goodbye to loved ones and relatives. And that courage and bravery, I'm really proud to be part of that team that put themselves in that place.
And from that, I guess, question to both you and Alexia, are you seeing that people are bringing more of themselves to work? Are they bringing more of their whole selves? Are they more comfortable with talking about what might be going home and outside of work?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that we do is our mental health strategy is very intertwined with our diversity and inclusion strategy. And as you've seen, people, really being more comfortable to bring their whole selves to work, whether it be from a gender, LGBTI, ethnicity, and that also then or disability, whether mental or physical, about how they then bring that to work and what they're willing to talk about. We had some amazing summer clerks start at the firm this time last year. Our summer clerks actually start next week. And they were incredible in terms of how open they were about their own mental health and experience, and we had actually 4 of them give a similar panel to this to the entire firm in Sydney, which is pretty brave for summer clerks, where they actually taught us a little bit about what it was like to be open about mental health and wellbeing, and some of the roles they'd played at university as residential advisors or on 24-hour hotlines at their universities. So certainly with the graduates and summer clerks coming through, they certainly are very comfortable to bring their whole selves to work, as they should be.
So what you're mentioning is the voices of lived experience. You've mentioned digital hubs, so places to go for content. I've got here in my notes that one organisation in the United States has appointed a chief heart officer, whose role it is to just have conversations with employees to help improve their experience, which is an interesting concept, isn't it? As more and more people are struggling with myriads of things, where does an employee's responsibility, I guess, start and stop for helping to manage that well-being?
Their own well-being. I think it's a bit of a dual role. It's certainly, if people are bringing their whole selves to work, that does automatically place a part of that in the workplace responsibility, because if somebody is coming into the workplace and disclosing, I'm not travelling so well because this is going on for me, it does mean the workplace is responsible for looking at how can we support you at work, what accommodations, what adjustments, do you need flexibility. So it is partly a workplace responsibility, but I do see it also partly a personal responsibility as well, to realise if I'm not travelling so well, and to take responsibility and ownership of my recovery. Because sometimes in the work that we do, we can be assisting people with these wonderful recovery strategies and recovery plans, but if they don't want to be part of that or own that themselves personally, the organisation cannot be responsible for somebody's recovery. So we can certainly put some good plans in place. So I think it's a bit of a dual role, partly personal responsibility and partly workplace responsibility as well.
I think a question that comes up quite often with workplaces is there a framework we should be working towards? Is there a guideline we should be working towards? Is there a handbook, I guess, almost, that tells us what we should be doing as leaders, as managers? What do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, because 8 years ago, we developed a mental health intervention framework, and many of you know about it and have implemented it. And it really came out of law firms, actually, because they were really probably the first professional group who were at risk of mental health issues. There had been a lot of media around, a lot of attention around the prevalence rates of mental health issues in law firms. So they really went first. And so they approached us and said, look, we've got some challenges here with mental health in law. Firstly, incredibly high prevalence rates that we know. Secondly, they're not easy mental health issues. They're actually complex, what we would call medium risk. Our entry point was often really complex mental health issues that we would see in the legal profession. And thirdly, we have no consistent approach in how we would manage and respond to this. What do we do? So what we were seeing in the market was, as Alexia was reflecting on before, a bit of a one-size-fits-all, which was pretty much our options are call the EAP, even for kind of really complex issues that would not be facilitated to recovery through short-term solution-focused counselling. The second option was, let's manage this legally. So let's have a look through the legal lens and look at how we're going to manage this person, which is often resulting in sometimes ending the employment relationships with that lens. And the third one was, let's get an IME, an independent medical examination from a psychiatrist. And you can imagine in a law firm environment, that's kind of not really early intervention. So they were the options that we were seeing 8 years ago. And I said, well, we can definitely put together a much better framework than that. So, and it was around giving people consistency, because people were saying, even what our office is doing in Melbourne is completely different to what our office is doing in Sydney. And we have no real concept of what we're following. So, and what we would also see is that people were kind of just looking at mental health issues as one, large group, and not really being able to disseminate between low risk, medium risk and high risk. So the frame that we built originated with the legal profession. We built it for the legal profession. We've run it out in banking and finance, accounting, media, a whole range of different industries now. But it is about having an evidence-based best practice approach. And most of the time, we do get recovery using the framework. It's only in a very small percentage. But I always think no matter what outcome is achieved, the fact that you've followed a robust evidence-based process always leads to an outcome of some sort. And that's a good thing for the individual who is the person who's unwell or at the centre of it. We need momentum and we need to get more sophisticated. So I think I have seen in the market much more sophistication now of people really implementing the framework within large corporate organisations. It is more challenging than a smaller organisation, but it's definitely possible.
I think it's, you've just got to spend some time at the beginning speaking with all of your HR leaders and managers and really talking to them about why the intervention framework is a good idea, why it works, and equipping them to have those conversations, because conversations about mental health are difficult, and so if they know how to do it, they're much more equipped to be able to say to a partner, no, it's not enough to say, I've referred this to the EAP. What would be the best option here is to do whatever, whatever approach might be recommended in the situation.
And I think actually that has also assisted HR professionals with their own wellbeing, because when we were first called into law firms 8 years ago, we would see the HR people going, I've had to go to a case conference with a psychiatrist and I've come out and I've agreed to all this stuff, is that right? And we'd kind of go, actually you maybe shouldn't have agreed to all those things. But they were struggling with their impact of that and their own wellbeing. So having the framework, I think, has been really great in terms of their own wellbeing too, to say, okay, I've followed the process, I've done everything I could do and I've referred in appropriately. And now we've got visibility and we're working, if we are a part of the solution, we're working as a team. We're doing this together. You're not on your own. We are absolutely assisting and supporting you as a team to get this recovery and giving this recovery a go.
And it's okay not to feel 100% confident when you go into these frameworks and situations, because as we know, like you say, conversations can be difficult. You think it might go one way and it's going to go the other, and I think it's important for us all to recognise in this room that some of us aren't experts, but it's about the intention. It's about the attitude and the intention to start with, because we know that once we change attitudes, we can influence intentions that will transfer to behaviour change, which is of course what we are all in this for. In terms of social issues affecting our communities and our workplaces, what do you think, we're talking a lot about mental health now. Is there anything that you think, is going to be the next topic? I think we had a little sneak preview in the video there. What aren't we talking about?
I think there's certainly, I've noticed, even just in the last 12 to 18 months, very much an emerging risk of vicarious trauma. Deb was talking about that in the video. That we are seeing, I think traditionally we've always associated vicarious trauma in roles such as emergency services, hospital, community service workers, teachers, all of those roles that we often traditionally will associate with vicarious trauma. But we've seen much more of an emerging risk in the last 18 months where people who are in roles have found themselves in positions where they are now exposed to vicarious trauma and they didn't sign up for trauma as part of their job, but due to change in environmental circumstances or work-related circumstances, have now found themselves in these positions. So some examples of some projects we've been working on in the last 18 months has been working with a large government department with a lot of their people who have been supporting drought-affected landholders. So last year we're on a very big project with them and they did not sign up for trauma as part of their role. They were signing up to, I'm passionate about animal welfare, we're in fisheries, I'm passionate about looking after the fish and the water supplies and all those things. But because of the drought, have now found themselves responsible for putting down thousands of livestock every month, of having to be involved in fish kills, in having to be being abused by members of the general public when they're having dinner because of their roles, and having to talk to really distressed landholders. So that's certainly one where they're exposed to elements of vicarious trauma. Even the project we've been on recently with regional and agribusiness bankers who were signed up to be great at their role because I'm great at finance and now finding themselves supporting landholders and now in very risky conversations around suicide, having to support them and hearing very hopeless stories around the landholders' lives, and they didn't sign up for that, as part of their job. So there's lots of pockets now where we're seeing organisations get much more sophisticated and saying, we've actually got some roles here in our organisation that we hadn't recognised before. Our business environment has changed and now we have roles who are at risk of exposure to vicarious trauma. So that's certainly a huge area where we've been really doing a lot of work in the last little while. And the other area I would say is I still think that there is still some fear and concern, particularly around family and domestic violence as well. So that would be my other area, because the prevalence rates are just as high, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 9 men who will experience that as an issue. And I still do think, particularly in professional services, I still think that there is a stigma around that, because you might have some highly educated people that feel as if I am ashamed or embarrassed or guilty about coming forward because I'm experiencing this issue. So that would be my other kind of area to keep on the radar too.
I think you've taken both of mine. So.
Yes, I was going to say Justin.
So domestic violence for us is a really major concern. I'm very proud to work for the bank in that we've actually had a policy of unlimited leave to support people going through domestic violence. I think that's a fantastic, bold step. I think it's the right step, and to remove that concern from people going through that amount of distress is fantastic. Vicarious trauma, absolutely. We have very much the same issues of customers coming in all kinds of personal and financial distress, and branch staff who maybe haven't gone through that before suddenly taking on somebody else's problem, trying to help them out. The bank is very good at assistance programs for them, but we really need to support our people better to go through that.
I'll wholeheartedly agree with both Justin and Rachel, but the other one that I wouldn't mind just adding in, it's possibly just top of mind for me because I went to a seminar on it this morning, but sort of we're in a post-Me Too, well, just post-Me Too, but we've also got the introduction of the whistleblowing legislation in Australia. And so that's going to lead to all of us in the room having whistleblower policies and whistleblower hotlines. I think we'll find that there'll be a mix between sort of whistleblower complaints that are also sort of workplace personal grievances, and how that plays out and how it changes the culture in organisations about how people choose to bring forward complaints and how they're dealt with. So I think that's just something to keep an eye on.
Some food for thought as to where we'll be sitting and what we'll be talking about in the next 20 years when we are all 40, Deb. Well, thank you very much. That's. I wondered if anybody from the floor would like to ask any questions to our panel. Any burning thoughts, comments? No? I think there you go. Answered the questions well. So good. Yeah, got off lightly. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. That was, both insightful for me too. So thank you very much for your time. Can we give a round of applause? Thank you.
Can I just, by way of official acknowledgement, it's been said something along, it takes a tribe or something to raise a, what is it? You know the one. Yep. Well, we certainly have a fantastic tribe, and there are lots of people and organisations that have helped us over the 20 years. So I'm going to name everyone personally. No, that would take a long time. First of all, to our clients, without you having needs and challenges, we wouldn't have a business. That's the simple truth of it. And so we cherish that. We were very honoured by the calibre and the types of clients that we work with. We feel very blessed in terms of being able to have a room full of friends. I love that, Catherine. I think that really sums up our client base around the country. We're pretty fussy who we choose to work with. I know you've heard me say that before, and it's been a great honour, so thank you. To our suppliers and partners from all over, and in terms of supporting us, providing services to help us do the work that we do, otherwise we'd never get anything done. So whether it's accounting and IT, marketing, business advisory services, HR, legal advisory services, printing, office space, travel, flower supplies, hair and makeup. It's been a whole list of people that have supported us, and that's been great too. And I know that the team with the video production and other people that have been involved, the guys doing the animation that you've seen with the resilience box, they've really got into it, and they've said, "Oh, we just love what you're doing," and they've loved actually working on the project, doing that work for us. And to our amazing team, once again, we're very blessed to have so many talented, hard-working professionals who share our passion. Many are here in the room, both on the professional consulting side and the support and operational services side. Without you, once again, it wouldn't all happen. So if you could all raise your glasses. I'll say, here's the next 20 years.